Welcome back, hyenas. I'm your host, Sumito Media, aka the Biryani Bandit, and today we're still talking about the attack on video games online. Now, if you remember the last few videos, we were talking about how payment processors made a move in order to remove a ton of explicit video games from both Steam and itch.io. Well, as of this morning, I have found this tweet from the musical developer, the musical artist, the guy who did the music for the indie psychological horror game Mouthwashing, which I imagine you've heard of at this point, tweeting out that, of course, Mouthwashing got yoinked from itch search results, lol. Not surprised, was kinda waiting for it to happen. Just a quick recap, this has all started from this sexual advocacy group located in Australia, where a group of what appears to be like over-enthusiastic soccer moms trying to police sexual content in media, not just video games, but also like Twitter and the internet as a whole, making a move to remove a game by the name of No Mercy that has been called a controversial sexual assault game, given that it seems like the entire premise of the game No Mercy was all around a hyper-realistic instance of sexual violence and sexual assault, and that was sort of the whole point of that game. Now, the general idea that's going on here is that a lot of people don't really care. It's like, okay, there's a game explicitly about rape on Steam. If that got taken down because people considered it to be too violent, too graphic, too dark of a topic to be considered a video game, sure enough, whatever. But the underlying issue with this is the reason that No Mercy was taken down was not because of an agreement between people agreeing that it was too explicit of a game and therefore needed to be taken off of digital store shelves. Rather, it was taken down in a manner akin to a publisher deciding that they don't want their video games in a store where this other video game exists. This advocacy group by the name of I've already fucking forgotten the name of it. This advocate, Collective Shout, made a bunch of calls to Steam in order to try to get this game taken down. And to my understanding, they were unsuccessful going about it that way. And so instead, they reached out to payment processors such as Visa and or MasterCard and or PayPal or whomever, stating, hey, your payment processing, your taxes, your fees, the credit cards that you're allowing to be run to purchase video games on Steam are in some way being used to purchase this hyper-violent sexual violence video game. Therefore, you shouldn't allow that to happen. And while their initial goal might have been to take down this one particular title in No Mercy, instead what has happened is payment processors making it so that Steam and itch.io cannot accept those payment processors on anything on their website. Meaning you can't even use that payment processor to buy Stardew Valley or Grand Theft Auto 5. They wouldn't allow that unless this video game was taken down, which is a little bit of a bigger step than just taking the video game down itself, right? It's kind of like calling in the superintendent because one of your classmates stole your chicken nuggets in the cafeteria. You're calling like the biggest, baddest boss to make this change. Now, the issue, of course, in going about it this way is that you are going to have a massive overcorrection when it comes to this sort of thing. So if you're reaching out to payment processors, obviously they have a overvalued, disproportionate hand in what goes on. Like, if Apple decides that your mobile app can't run on iPhones, you're probably not going to continue to make that mobile app, because if they decide it can't be on iPhones, that's 70% of all phones you might be downloaded on in the US. For the most part, why would you continue to work on that? So when MasterCard or Visa or whomever says, hey, you can't let anybody use our payment processing system unless you take these games down, well, game publishing websites like Steam and itch.io that rely on PayPal or MasterCard or Visa or whomever to handle what might be 100% of people buying games on their platform, if they decide, hey, we're not going to work with you unless you take down this title, and anything that's close to these titles, you can't use us whatsoever. Steam, itch.io, and any other company that publishes video games and requires that usage is basically at the mercy of them, ironically enough. And so you end up in a situation where thousands of video games that contain sexual violence, incest, and a number of other things that have been detailed in this way with very vague guidelines as to what those games need to contain in order to be considered not allowed by them, just blanket banned off of their website. Obviously, anybody with a working cognitive brain can now put one and one together and go, oh, while I might not necessarily be in favor of supporting having this hyper-sexually violent video game on Steam, if it sets a precedent that and any game around it can be taken down simply because 1,000 people made a phone call to Visa and said they didn't approve of it, this is a ball that can get rolling really fucking quickly and very, very quickly get out of control. And that's kind of what's already started to happen. So if you guys aren't familiar with Mouthwashing, this is an indie psychological horror game that was released, I think, early last year. And it took the internet by storm because of its non-linear storytelling. It very much had you piece together this story that it slowly unfolded. You learn more and more about characters and sort of at the end of it discover that the main guy you're playing is actually sort of the biggest villain in all this, but very, very slow burn, beautifully symbolic sort of video game that puts this together. Lots of people have played it. Lots of people have put together video essays of it. I'm a huge fan of psychological horror games that have a lot of thinking and symbolism, that you really kind of have to look at it from a lot of aspects. I feel like it's a great piece of like art that comes through the medium of video games. Like, it's great, right? That might be surprising to some of you if you've ever watched me in a Twitch stream, given that I am a giant scaredy cat and I do not play horror games whatsoever, but I still enjoy this sort of content through video essays and watching people play through them and explain it to me. It's great second monitor listening. I've watched playthroughs of this for hours and hours despite never having played it myself because, again, I am a giant scaredy cat. Now, one of the fundamental emphases of this game, one of the side stories, as it were, of the 4 or 5 characters that are on this ship delivering a bunch of mouthwash intergalactically, right, is this character here, who, as time goes on, is very, very, like, scared of your character, the one that you're playing. And at first you think that it's just because she's sort of squeamish. She's the only female on board. Maybe she's worried about, you know, the life support systems going down and what's going to happen. As time goes on, you learn that it is because she is pregnant. And as time goes on further, you learn the reason that she is so distant to you may be because she was sexually assaulted by you, the main character. The baby that she's carrying may very well be yours. I don't know how overly emphasized it is or how much of that you have to sort of extract by yourself, but there is a implication of sexual assault / rape in this video game. I would imagine that that sub-story of this, alongside a bunch of like body horror and stuff, is what might have triggered one of the flags to now lead this game to be unlisted from search. I don't believe it's been completely removed, but it's been hidden in some regard, obviously due to the changes that have been put in place by these payment processors. Now, to be clear, this game is not about rape. The selling point of this video game is not a hyper-realistic sexual assault simulator the way that No Mercy was. This is a game that has a bunch of little stories in it, tells a whole psychological adventure that it brings the character through in discovering that the main character you're playing is, at the end of it, the cause of all the damage, the death, the assault that goes on with all these characters. It's a very beautiful, artistic representation of a whole bunch of dark themes in a video game, all of which should be perfectly allowed under the guise of artistic integrity in this medium. And yet it seems to have been taken down along the same guidelines as genuine rape simulators along the lines of No Mercy. This is textbook overcorrection. The sound designer, Mr. Martin, on Twitter goes on to say, to be clear, Itch has been backed into a corner and had no other option. The issue lies with MasterCard / Visa and with Collective Shout, that advocacy group that we were talking about, who push payment processors to do this. Your anger should be directed towards them. Responding to another person saying that payment processors like MasterCard and Visa have been pushed by an activist group, Collective Shout, to deplatform not safe for work content on many major platforms, including Itch. Collective Shout have tried to go after Steam, but were unsuccessful, so they targeted payment processors instead, basically rehashing everything that we talked about. And this sucks, right? This is, in my opinion, and the bar might be in a different place depending on who you ask, but this has very much reached the level of like book burning or banning certain things from existing in like schools and what have you, except this is the public internet. where like these games already have rating systems, already have reviews, you already have to check that you're okay with these themes in a video game or are over the age of 18 in order to download, buy, purchase, and watch these sorts of videos and play these sorts of video games. There's already guidelines in place to be able to prevent people from experiencing this sort of thing if they don't sign up for it. This game in particular, in Mouthwashing, is very far from the sort of game that you want to be your flagship, this is what we need to take down. It is very much something that has been caught in the crossfire of something that is going on right now, and who knows where this is going to end when everything is said and done if we don't do something about it. Reading further into this, there seems to be an instance from back in November where this same sound designer for Mouthwashing made a tweet basically upset that Asmongold had discovered the game and seemingly is mad that people who are anti-woke in Asmongold's community and whomever are enjoying this game that he made, and he received a bunch of backlash for that. So there are also a bunch of comments under the same tweet that are like, listen, buddy, you reap what you sow. I guess implying that like he was against the right-wing side of Twitter that were saying that they enjoyed this game because he didn't approve of them, but they were the ones who were the most vocal against censorship in video games, and now that censorship is it's a whole thing, I guess. People tried warning you that censorship was bad, but you felt the need to insult anti-woke people because you disagree with their politics and were happy when they got censored. I'm sorry for Mouthwashing, but you reap what you sow. That's the other side of people who are bitching about this guy complaining that the game got taken down. Maybe I'm just too naive in the way that the world works and how like governing bodies handle these broad sweeping changes when it comes to things like implementation of online safety and artistic integrity in video games and what should and should not be allowed in terms of being censored by publishers or the government and what should be allowed as a free market. But I feel like there is space for nuance here. Like, surely it isn't a matter of just all censorship is bad, no censorship should be allowed whatsoever. I am completely fine with drawing the line at the things that might be considered serious crimes or implicative of violent individuals and the only habits that they have in a video game. Again, hyper-realistic rape simulator, if that is the #1 bullet point in your video game, I would argue I'm fine with that disappearing. But the counter argument to that is the second that you say it's okay to censor anything, you open the doors to allow a governing body, a publisher, payment processors, the government, your dad, whomever, to censor anything that they feel falls under that umbrella. And that definition doesn't get defined clear enough to make everybody happy, and we end up in situations like this. I would also argue that infighting is probably not going to lead us to like a proper solution to this. Like, at the end of the day, whether you are politically right-wing or left-wing, are a fan of Asmongold and or censorship and or not, it's like, surely everybody's at the agreement that like you shouldn't have to upload your government ID to be able to use Twitter. Like, surely you don't want your real name tied to everything that is already being tracked by like advertisers and like people trying to figure out your political spectrum and whether or not you're pregnant or shopping for a car or in credit card debt or any of that. Like, surely we're all in line with like there's a level of animosity that should come alongside just browsing the internet. Obviously, seeing that Mouthwashing has become the latest victim of this censorship situation that's going on with payment processing, because like Mouthwashing, again, not to rehash the point over and over again, but it's like there's body horror and there's like graphic violence, but like the sexual assault in that game is very much like an implied thing that you discover through playing the game. There's no nudity, there's no graphic depictions of sexual assault the way that there are in the more obvious games that have been banned under this. It's just like rape exists in the story, therefore it seems to have been taken down under this umbrella. And it's like, how much further is that gonna get pushed? Is Grand Theft Auto 6 not gonna allow you to buy drugs or have strippers in the game because it implies a level of like human trafficking that is super common with exotic dancers and what have you? Is Game of Thrones, the video game, going to be removed because there's incest implied within the Daenerys family and stuff like that? Like, it already feels like the bar has been pushed to the point where it's becoming a little bit ridiculous if we don't make a hard stance and like, hey, listen, this is purely fantasy. These aren't real characters or anything, and the premise of this isn't to simulate such. Why is this being taken down under the same umbrella as everything else? Crazy that itch delisted mouthwashing. Are people not allowed to make art with difficult themes anymore? It's a porn game. No, it isn't. I jacked off to Curly's, so it is. I want to emphasize that, like, we've talked about the Online Safety Act going on in the UK. As of recently, there seems to be a similar thing going on in the US, where governing bodies seem to be moving to make it so that you can't interact with the internet in spaces where there may be adult content. We're not just talking about porn websites. We're talking about like Twitter, and God knows it might be fucking Reddit. It might be pbskids.forum the next day, without an identification showing that you are over the age of 18. And just enforcing that people need to be adults on the internet on the whole is obviously like, hell yeah, get rid of these stupid fucking Zoomers on my Twitter replies. But the only way for them to do that is to have a picture of your face or your ID tied to your online existence is cringe and stupid. And that's just with like the governing bodies of like the internet. It's easy to get that confused with the current censorship that's going on with video games. But the thing that I want to remind you is that this censorship of video games on Steam and on itch.io is the direct result of 1,000 Australian soccer moms calling Visa and making a big fuss about porn existing in video games. This is an insane snowball to have been accomplished from like the equivalent of like a small cafeteria worth of people making phone calls to Visa. Like, that's crazy. I found this Reddit post on r/Steam, how to directly pressure payment processors. If you have a Visa card, there is this website, which is basically just the contact us form under Visa. You can do the same with MasterCard or perhaps even Steam or what have you. And there are a lot more than 1,000 people who watch my videos. Surely you can make an equal amount of noise in opposition of this level of censorship when it comes to video games online. Now, obviously, Steam and itch.io are completely at the mercy of payment processors, because if they decide to pull their support, they have no way of selling video games. But it is probably as simple as everybody going, hey, you guys overcorrected. Why in the fuck can I not buy my video games anymore? And hopefully that will just right the ship, and this will be something we don't need to think about any longer, and we can focus on the much bigger issue of them removing titties from Twitter. I found this tweet that I feel like perfectly encompasses a lot of the thought process going on, which is that the worst part of this Online Safety Act is that you can't complain about it without being accused of being a porn addict. And that's exactly what it is. My last two videos and basically everybody's coverage on this topic has been, oh no, this is the 9/11 for gooners on the internet, and it's hiding the bigger issue that this correction to getting rid of gooner titles is going to start implicating much more than just the porn games that you think don't actually affect anything that's going on. This is a much bigger deal that we are already starting to see seep into the more mainstream titles that should not be affected by big sweeping changes like this. And it is, I cannot emphasize this enough, it is cringe. Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments alongside any other updates to this ongoing developing process so that I can cover them in a future video. If you guys don't want to miss those videos, I'm going to try to upload just every single day because I don't know what else to do. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss those videos coming up. A big thank you to the patrons for supporting the show, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Spisu.